excited by the opportunity to speak to, I'll give you a little bit of a bio. Kristin is the Global Vice President, Retail Marketing and Merchandising for SAP. She's got 25 years of technology and retail experience, including leadership roles across management consulting, solution design, product marketing, and software development organizations. As a global VP within SAP's retail industry business unit, she specializes in the area of marketing, planning, pricing, promotions, and predictive analytics. She's responsible for SAP's retail strategy and roadmap across a suite of solutions and works closely as a trusted advisor and thought leader for SAP's global retail customer base. She currently sits on the board of the Terry J. Lundgren Center for Retailing at the University of Arizona. And she also holds an MBA from the W.P. Carey School of Business at ASU and bachelor's degree in economics and international relations from the University of Southern California. From my point of view, it's always a pleasure to speak with Kristin. I know from a Rising point of view, we go back a long way, and it certainly is helpful whenever we have sort of customer discussions. It's always great to be able to bring Kristin in, and she does a fantastic job with that. So I'm thanks very much for joining me today, Kristin. Kristin, so the first thing is, from a Rising point of view, we're starting to see after COVID and a lot of online shopping and sort of at-home experiences that customers are really starting to sort of have a desire to go back into stores, and specifically in grocery, the idea of being able to touch and feel produce and walk aisles and so on. What are some of the other things that you're seeing from major trends and challenges in the retail industry? And if you have some specific grocery insight as well, that would be helpful.
Sure. So good to see you, Darren. Always happy to spend time with my friends at Rising. So appreciate the opportunity. I know we called this a fireside chat. I feel like with the heat here in Arizona, it's very aptly named. No fire required. So anyway, great to see you guys. And in terms of trends, maybe I'll start with the example you mentioned, that store experience and the longing that we see from consumers really wanting to get back into the stores. We definitely see that, around the world, not just here in the US, but it puts an interesting set of pressures on retailers because as they think about the experience in the store, it goes far beyond just the products you're selling or how you're pricing or how you're promoting. And I really think that store experience dimension, it's caused retailers to really think, what is the right assortment? What's the right format? What is that experience that I'm looking to create? Some formats, you want a convenience-driven experience with a lot of in-store technology for fast checkouts and, automated product and price lookups. Other store experiences, you're actually looking for a more kind of service-led approach. So in that model, you're looking for store associates who have, the world at their fingertips, if you will. They know everything about the products, they know everything about you, and they can almost serve you as that segment of one. And so for me, one of the key trends is really about diversification, being able to diversify the store experience, diversify the assortment, diversify fulfillment, whether, omni-channel, so many different modes of, buy online, ship to home, or pick up in store. And so to me, again, generalizing it, diversification is number one, I would say. The other key trend we see is really the financial pressures for retailers are very real, whether it's inflation, supply chain volatility, rising costs, labor shortages, which obviously has a financial impact to it. Many retailers are, it's the same job, if you will, in terms of getting, the right product to the right consumer at the right time. But this volatility in the supply chain and frankly, volatility in the financial markets, it creates a lot of uncertainty for retailers. So we see a lot of popularity around financial solutions or planning solutions where you really can start to simulate, kind of work different scenarios, because that ability to plan is what is giving retailers the opportunity to try to manage that volatility, which we don't think is really, going away anytime soon. And I would say the other kind of macro trend we see, there really is a lot more discussion around sustainability, purpose-driven retailing. And I say that in terms of, it's not just a compliance topic anymore, right? How do I report my carbon footprint and how do I, comply with the different regulations? I see more and more retailers, whether you're reducing food waste in grocery or trying to keep product out of the landfill as a fashion brand, it's really about how do I start to kind of intertwine these concepts of sustainability? How do I intertwine the core values of my company that consumers are, consumers are voting with their pocketbooks. They're standing behind the brands that share their values. So there really is much more of a need to be able to kind of walk the walk of sustainability as opposed to just talking the talk. And so we have many retailers who are looking to kind of figure out how do I use technology to really bring these trends to life in a meaningful and actionable way. I would say
Right.
those are the big three.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. I think the strategies is the idea that what should retailers do to consider to be competitive, and we've started to see, I think, a lot more focus on sustainability. I think that's been a big difference over the last, let's say, 18 months as we started to talk to customers and get feedback. That's a lot more, I think, front of mind than it used to be. I think from a solution point of view, what are some of the kind of key things that people who are considering S4 or a suite of solutions that SAP can bring that maybe differentiates themselves in that sustainability space?
Sure. And I think, technology is a really it's become a real enabler, right, for many of these processes. And, our strength and our point of view about it from an SAP perspective is it's really about integration, and sustainability is a great topic because it's one thing to kind of measure your carbon footprint or, measure different elements, right, from a kind of green ledger point of view. But being able to really operationalize, a more sustainable outcome is very different. And I'll give you an example. We work with a hypermarket grocery retailer out of Europe, and it really is in the DNA of their corporate mission to do good for the planet, right? To be a responsible corporate citizen. And they were struggling because they were starting to kind of get some bad press because they had a lot of food going into the landfill, right? A lot of food waste. And in a grocery model where you really have a heavy fresh assortment and you're trying to turn quickly, especially if you think about, the increase in prepared food in grocery stores, right? You're making sandwiches, you're making salads. It's very kind of custom, short life, short shelf life type of items. And so this particular retailer really said, hey, we got to walk the walk. So we did some really interesting work with them where we combined some machine learning algorithms to do a better prediction of demand. We brought in some additional influencing factors. So I want to look at the weather because if it starts raining at 2 p.m., the demand for, salads and prepackaged dinner items at 6 p.m. is going to be lower. There'll just be fewer people in the store because of the weather, for example. So by starting to combine, better machine learning and then integrating that signal, so they have a lot of automation that says, hey, at 2 p.m., when the algorithm tells me my demand may be lower than expected, I'm automatically going to tell, the food production team to stop making salads and stop making sandwiches, right? Because I can see it falling off. Or vice versa, right? You can see a scenario where it's also an opportunity to prevent out of stocks, because if you see an uptick in demand or other signals, you can start to kind of react. So really interesting when you think about sustainability through the lens of action. You can start to put together machine learning, automation, and different kind of technology components that enable you to really respond very quickly and achieve some of those goals.
Yeah, interesting. Um, it's interesting you started talking about machine learning. We had a conversation, or I had a conversation today with a client that was talking about, introducing some more data modeling and things like that as part of their car solution. So there's a lot more, I would say, kind of bleeding edge technology that's being introduced into customers, I think, right now. And there's a lot more, I think, a more favorable reaction to when we talk about those things today than there was maybe 3-4 years ago. There's a lot of press around it as well, AI, IoT, and data, like big analytics and things like
Yep.
that. So what role do these all play in your mind in reshaping what the future of retail is going to look like between today and, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years? And how is SAP contributing to this transformation?
This is a great question. It's one of my favorite topics as a kind of data nerd myself. Retail's really interesting from what I'll call a predictive space, right? There's lots of choice, and at least the SAP strategy is to offer kind of a spectrum of capabilities as it pertains to predictive. So, starting at the kind of, the beginner level, we have lots of solutions that just measure price elasticity, just calculate trend or calculate promotional uplift, right? So you think of it almost as kind of predictive analytics for decision support. How do I make merchants and supply chain analysts and store operators just smarter about what's happening in their business? And I think there really is a lot of low-hanging fruit, right? You mentioned, the customer you talked to could be a great area to explore and say, hey, why don't we just start, unlocking some of the insights that are in our data, right? Beginner level predictive analytics. You can fast forward that, to the end of the spectrum where you say, hey, I'm getting more advanced. I'm getting more confident in the cleanliness of my data. Some of the more advanced algorithms and opportunities we see for machine learning, it's actually not the machine learning by itself. It's the embedding of the machine learning or the combination of the machine learning with a real-time data signal. So imagine that you're applying an algorithm to sales patterns or customer trends or signals, on customer preferences from other channels. If you start to combine that with what you know in an SAP S4 master data structure, I know what real-time inventory is. I know that there's another shipment of the hottest trending product that's on a truck that'll be delivered in the next hour. Or, you can imagine a number of different scenarios. That's really where we're heading. It's not just, machine learning for the sake of it. It's starting to embed it and combine it with lots of other data signals and KPIs so that retailers really can take action on it. And they can take action no matter where they are from, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Lots of opportunities to kind of start small, crawl, walk, run, and really grow with the capabilities as it makes sense for their business.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think that as I mentioned, the customer that we talked to today, it's been they're kind of, I would say, just early in their infancy as far as some of these capabilities. They want to eventually get to using predictive replenishment of some of the industry cloud option
Yep.
for that. And so I think that is sort of a long term, but they're very early in their even education about what's available, what they can do, and so on. So it's always it's a really interesting time to have these discussions because again, even 2 years ago, a lot of the conversations were, well, that's just really way down this. That's 30. It's 30 years from now, right? So I think that window has shrunk immeasurably over and very very quickly over the last couple of years. So what I want to talk about now, I guess, really is just some examples of SAP solutions enhancing customer experiences. We have customers now who are using some of the new Fiori apps that are right on people's handhelds and being able to, you mentioned earlier about real-time inventory availability in the stores and being able to recognize out of stock locations quicker and being able to fill that and make it a little bit better from a customer retailing point of view. They're walking the things and there's not empty shelves or anything like that. So what are some of the other kind of maybe some examples that you may have for retailers that are just leveraging some of the solutions that you have just to make their everyday customer experience better?
Sure. So I think, starting with the example you mentioned, we have a number of retailers, particularly I can think of several examples where you're running a small format shop, right? Whether it's a convenience store or a drugstore or even just kind of a small, grab and go grocery store. You mentioned the, kind of the in-store merchandising apps that are part of S4. We've seen tremendous adoption of those, Fiori apps to really put, the power, what used to be SAP at headquarters, right? SAP was in the back office. We're really seeing a significant penetration of SAP, at your fingertips, whether it's in, on a mobile device that's run by a store associate who's, scanning you for fast checkout, who's receiving your online order and doing the, pick, pack, and ship for, in-store pickup. We see lots of store associates looking up inventory, right? And not just inventory in the store, but being able to go back through the supply chain. If I don't have your color and size, I can order it for you right here on this device, right? Have it delivered to your home. So I think the, mobility, to your point, 5 years ago, you would have said, what? What do you mean SAP running in the store, or SAP in the hands of, 100,000 store associates? It really is happening today. And certainly that mobility, at your fingertips dramatically changes the customer experience. And what I love about listening to some of our, the SAP customers tell their stories, there's no two that are alike, right? It's really about, especially with a technology like Fiori, you really can choose your own adventure, and how you assemble the workflow and how you assemble those tiles and what data you make available at different points of that customer journey really becomes differentiating. And I have this conversation a lot with retailers. Even though you may have 100 retailers running what seems to be the same solution from SAP, I would almost guarantee that there's no two projects that are alike, because it's really about being able to kind of assemble, right? Kind of creating that customer journey in a way that's differentiating, in a way that makes sense. And this, right? This is our job working together, right? From SAP as a software provider and Rising as a solution partner. It's really about putting our heads together and helping our retail customers kind of see the potential of how to assemble it. So I think that's just a really important part of the journey. And I feel like I didn't answer your question, Darren. I got up on a bit of a tangent.
No, it's all good. I think that the idea of obviously the mobility improvements around the solution, I think have absolutely helped to have a more intimate experience with your customers in store, being able to answer their questions quicker. I think there's also the use of, like, we've seen some customers using just some survey results, right? And being able to take that survey content back right away and be able to make decisions on survey results and so on. So I think that's some of the things that we've seen. We've also seen, I think, from the customer experience online, right? A lot of the different having better available inventory information and so on. That's been a big deal, I think, for a lot of customers. Obviously, it's no longer it's nice to be online. You have to have some sort of online presence. Even customers who, like, if they hadn't before COVID, made them have some online presence, right? Even if they didn't kicking and screaming running into that, that's where they ended up today. So I think my experience has been just there's a better sort of, I think, more powerful back office engine that gives people the capability to look at data and have access and interpret data quicker than there used to be. I think has been a big, from my point of view and from a Rising point of view, a big improvement.
And maybe one other example, right, in terms of customer experience, we see a lot of retailers really kind of reinventing what their online meets store meets marketing, experience looks like. Many retailers have invested in, I'll kind of call it, next generation marketing personalization, right, powered by Marcis and some of the other retail solutions that we provide. But you raise a good point. I see this all the time, is that what starts off as maybe a request for an upgraded commerce solution, or a request for better personalized marketing, really quickly can turn into what you might think of as a back office discussion, because creating that frictionless, convenient, effortless experience that all retailers want really has a lot of capabilities under the water. That iceberg is quite deep and broad under the water, because it does generally take good real-time inventory so that you can make an available to promise decision. It takes the ability to pick, pack, and ship quickly and accurately so that you can meet a 2-hour pickup window. It takes the ability to return. We see this more and more. The rise in omni-channel shopping has created a wave of challenges with returns. What do I do with an item that comes back to the store that isn't in that assortment? Or what do I do with an item that was kind of rung up on my e-commerce system, and somebody's standing at a point of sale trying to figure out how to look it up and validate it and issue the refund? So those are a lot of processes that there's really huge opportunity to improve what your customer perceives as their overall experience, drive more brand loyalty, even in just the blocking and tackling of handling a return more efficiently, right?
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. I think when we go back to the trend, right? Like the frictionless shopping is that experience is really key. And we're hearing that from executives that are not IT related. So it might be the CEO, it might be the chief of sales, it might be just a chief customer experience. Those types of people are telling us, regardless of the technology, the business need is to be able to get some stickiness from a customer point of view and loyalty and those types of things, and then also just make it easier to do business with us. Like right now, it's complicated because, to your point, our POS systems are out of date, or they don't necessarily talk to the back end, and those are the things that they're still trying to get over. I think COVID certainly accelerated this, but for a long time, they were sort of cobbling together solutions in the e-com and in the omni-channel space. And all of a sudden now we're looking at SAP's providing much more, I would say, integrated solutions in a better solution set to solve a lot of the different or a lot of different things that these executives are looking for. I'll get to more omni-channel questioning in a second. One of the things that we talk a lot about, and I think BTP has been a pretty large kind of presence at Sapphire and over the last couple of years and TechEd and so on. One of the things I stand up in front of customers and talk about is the idea of clean core, and I use the very real idea that SAP is investing, billions of dollars in R&D every year. And the only way you can take advantage of that investment by SAP is to have a clean core and not have your solution customized, so you can't take advantage of the next upgrade, or you can't take advantage of those requirements. We've seen some, I would say, improvement of the understanding of BTP from a customer, like how a customer might use it on their extension or integration, using as a platform development. Are you starting to see that too, across? Obviously, we don't speak to everybody, but our clients are starting to get a better understanding of BTP. Are you seeing that as well? And do you still, what are some, I think, maybe space or some improvement in that space that SAP is looking to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I definitely see a lot of interest and excitement around BTP. And I think back to the Sapphire event in Florida just a few months ago. For me, BTP was probably, one of the most requested, hottest topics that we were getting questions around. What are the possibilities? How does it work? What can it do for my business? And the shift I've seen at SAP, a few years ago, BTP would have been thought of as it's a toolkit, right? It's just a platform, it's components. I've got a tool to move data. I've got a tool for some, out of the box algorithms. I've got a tool to, publish and subscribe, move things in and out of the cloud, right? But almost kind of, built for IT, more mechanical. And what I've seen recently and what we've been focused on in retail is how do we create more packages? How do we leverage BTP at the fundamentals of our software so that it's not just, starting from a blank sheet of paper where I pick up the toolkit and, figure out how to, create my own chatbot. It's more about how can I use BTP as an extension of the suite or as an extension of the capabilities that SAP already provides. So I think that's really been the evolution of BTP, certainly for us, in the retail software package, but across all the industries at SAP. And I can give you an example. So, we mentioned industry cloud, right? The intelligent suite. We have a number of our retail customers who are quite happy with, what they're running in the intelligent suite. They're happy with S4. They maybe have it in a private cloud version, right? But they want to be able to take advantage of some new industry cloud offerings. And, the BTP platform is a great way to think about connecting those business processes, connecting those data flows to really, almost unlock, right? How do I take a forecast that maybe I'm already running in CAR through UDF and publish it so that it's available for the DC replenishment solution that's in the cloud? And BTP, right, the suite of tools really makes that connection, those data movements, that process integration possible. And you're not starting from scratch, right? You've got the services built by SAP and the connectors and the components, but BTP can really become the glue almost that you need to put those things together. So I would say more and more, I'm hearing from a lot of retailers, they're using BTP to extend connect, and really, it's not just a toolkit where you're trying to build your own apps from scratch. It's really a way to think about, and especially the point I mentioned, I see this every day. While it may be the same piece of software, it's about finding that differentiated process, because how one retailer thinks about using predictive analytics and that demand forecast, even though it's the same algorithm and technology, could be very different, could generate a different outcome, could be pointed at a different use case. So I see a lot of interest in BTP, lots of projects, and I should mention some retailers will use it to kind of build their own apps or, right, other kind of more technical developments. It's certainly very good at that. But I think more and more it's really become a kind of the power to extend. And to your point about keeping the core clean, BTP is really the secret sauce to keep your core clean, because if you can manage the kind of the standards in terms of master data, the standard interfaces, and innovate around the core, which is what BTP is really designed to do, when you get to that next upgrade, it can be applied more seamlessly, right? It can, you can take advantage of the new features, you can add value without having a significant IT project. And much of that is because the fundamentals, the core capabilities that we built are all based on the kind of the BTP tenants.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the more interesting discussions that we've had with client recently is the idea that they have a let's say a view of article where they have data that's obviously within their ERP system. They have data that is available on the web. And they're looking for what their terminology is, a single pane of glass, that they can see all of this data. And we're talking about building applications within BTP that can call non-SAP content into it,
Yep.
as well as SAP content. They might have some pricing and promotion information that they're looking for that product and inventory. So they have this, they're talking about building a single application that gives them visibility for all the key components for that item. Most of that data is SAP data, but some of it might be vendor specific data that comes in that they can call out to get that from the vendor, or might get some marketing, some market detail, some general merchandise detail. So it's really an interesting discussion, and BTP is the underlying tool and in order to bring all that in. So I think it creates the opportunity, I think, to build some very SAP centric applications where you get data from non-SAP sources as well as SAP sources. And it also is quick, right? Like the ability to build some solutions on there. It's not a 2-year endeavor like they potentially would have been in the past. So I think we're seeing a lot of good use cases for, I would say, non-standard kind of function. So I think it's been a really good exercise to go through. I wouldn't mind getting your view on, so again, some sort of, let's say, newer solutions, specifically in industry cloud, that are in the retail space. I mentioned earlier today, we had some discussions about predictive replenishment. We also have been talking a little bit about some things that SAP checkout and some other things. What are some of the kind of industry cloud topics that you're excited about that you think are ready for some retailers maybe to take advantage of?
It's a great question. I see when we think about industry cloud, for me, it's really about the clusters of capabilities, right? So the industry cloud solutions, they really are designed to be kind of smaller, bite size, right? It's not heart surgery to implement, right? They by design are kind of narrow and deep use cases, bite size. They're built to be modular, to be put together or taken a la carte, right? Depending on the architecture and the landscape. And the clusters I really like. We've got a number of omni-channel focused industry cloud solutions. So the order management foundation, the omni-channel sourcing and availability. There's a great cluster of solutions. Omni-channel pricing and promotions is another one. And what I like about them, again, they're a la carte solutions. So if a retailer says, "Hey, I'm really struggling with my pricing and promotions. My marketing and merchandising teams have done a beautiful, masterful job of understanding our customers, designing great offers, personalizing, but it's exponentially increased the number of price points that I now have to harmonize and orchestrate both at point of sale and the web channel, and maybe even in a third-party marketplace or whatever channels you're selling in. We've seen a huge adoption of omni-channel pricing and promotion as this industry cloud service for retailers who say, first, I need to be able to execute, because if I can't make sure that a customer has a great experience and a customer, receives the value that I marketed to them, that generated their loyalty, that motivated the purchase, nothing evaporates customer loyalty more than the wrong price or more than a missed, loyalty opportunity. And so, omni-channel pricing and promotion, it's just one example where, a la carte, you really can put almost a kind of traffic cop in between your SAP back office, where you're designing beautiful promotions, managing the master data, keeping track of cost and margin, understanding what's in an assortment or not, right? You're handling the blocking and tackling of that customer offer, but being able to reliably, accurately, and automatically deliver that experience at any channel, at any time, with any change, really has become a game changer. And I think it's a great example of how you can combine an industry cloud solution with the power of your back office to really deliver that end-to-end customer experience. And the same would apply for looking at, real-time inventory, the ability to make, profitable, fast, accurate sourcing decisions, right? Connecting a customer order online with the right inventory, right logistics, right fulfillment. They all kind of fall into this bucket that we think of as our omni-channel industry cloud.
Very good. Yeah, I think, selfishly from our point of view, obviously we have a product that sits in that industry cloud layer and lifecycle pricing. And
Yep.
we will have a session that's dedicated to for those who are interested, we'll have a session dedicated to lifecycle pricing in the future. But certainly from our point of view, it's a way for us to add value to the solution set that SAP delivers, right? In that industry cloud, the idea is that partners are able to kind of add on some capabilities in that space that maybe SAP is not going to focus on in the future. And that's and I would say too, one of the biggest things that I've noticed in the last, I would say, couple of years is the idea that that partners play a bigger role now, I think, in the whole experience. Certainly from our point of view, we've seen I wouldn't say a big improvement, just more of it, right? Just the idea of collaboration and participation with as part of the pre-sales or during delivery of projects. SAP's presence in a lot of these things have been very collaborative. So I'm assuming I'll rephrase that. I know it's by design, but I also have you seen what's the sort of, from our point of view, I think customers enjoy that. Is that similar? Have you seen similar experiences on your side with the way that SAP's positioned sort of their partnership with partners in the field?
I think so, for sure. And what's interesting for me, all the principles we've been talking about, clean core and the use of BTP, just like it creates a standardized, more kind of operationally efficient environment for retailers, it does the same for our ecosystem of partners who are always interested in, kind of repeatable solutions. And what I've really seen, lifecycle pricing is a great example. A few years ago, a partner would have been able to do a, custom application on a project, right? It's almost kind of like single use, right? And there's many challenges, many problems out there. If you were able to really standardize the solution, put it on a platform that could plug and play, right, in other landscapes or have other uses, that's really kind of the multiplier model that we've seen with BTP and Clean Core. And we see it as a real opportunity to not only help our partners kind of, unlock reuse capabilities, new revenue streams, for their retail customers, but it's great for us from an ecosystem perspective because there's many problems that don't exist in just, one retailer. And from an SAP innovation perspective, one of the other market trends we see on the software side of the business is that there's a huge demand for new use cases, right? We're our retailers are craving differentiation. And so being able to power, to empower our partners to use the platform to bring their ideas, to life. We can, monetize them and sell them through the SAP store. It gives confidence that it can be plug and play in the platform. And we at SAP can't possibly solve every retail problem that's out there. And we don't intend to, but we see the partner community, the ecosystem, as a real value for retailers and a huge value for us as we look at, bringing more innovation to the market faster and solving, kind of nuanced, or what we see as more specialty problems. And you know this better than anybody. Grocery and fashion, you might call them both retail, but those are not the same businesses, right? There's uniquenesses, there's differentiation, and yeah, we love being able to bring partner solutions into our portfolio, kind of side by side with the software developed by SAP.
Excellent. No, that's good to hear. Um, so looking ahead, so I think we talked a lot about, future retail. Every time that we get together, we talk about things that we kind of see. What do you see in the future, I would say, for retailers and technology partners, the collaboration to achieve what we think is coming for, excuse me, I messed that up. Hang on, I'll try that again. So looking ahead, just an idea about what SAP's vision for the future of retail, and how do you see retailers and technology partners such as yourself collaborating to achieve that future?
Another great question. So when we look ahead to the future of retail and the future of many other industries, our strategy is really to provide choice and modularity. And you'll hear us talk a lot about a composable architecture. And, at the high level, what we see is that, retailers especially, they'll be on different journeys. They want to create different customer experiences. They have different models of how they run their operations, different objectives. So, we want to offer choice. So if you want to be in a private cloud instance, that's your choice. If you're ready to move to the public cloud because there's some business processes that are more commodity and you want to generate economies of scales and efficiency, we want to be there to support that. If you want to live in a hybrid world where some processes are differentiated that you own and run in your landscape, where some may be, you may consider more commodity that you want to run in a different architecture, we want to do that too. So much of our roadmap and our innovation strategy, I get these questions a lot. Is it either or? Is it either industry cloud or car? Is it either public cloud or private cloud? And part of the reason we've invested in BTP and we work so closely with our solution partners like yourself, we really see probably in the near term, many retailers will be on a kind of hybrid journey. And they're going to need that modularity, they're going to need the flexibility, and they're going to want that. And that those architectures will actually start to power different business models, power a different financial outcome, give them the tools that they need to really, create that differentiated customer experience. So it's kind of a high level answer, I know, but we really are focused on choice, modularity, composable architectures. I would say the next big trend, we talked a lot about machine learning and predictive. It's a huge area of investment for us because, like I said, I think we're coming up, a few years ago, you would have said, oh, that algorithm, that's just in a movie, right? That's not real. It's not really happening. More and more retailers are starting to experiment with it. They're starting to see good results with it. And it only takes some, the hint of some good results to then really demand more. So I would say one of the things we see retailers who start some of these projects in machine learning, it's a hypothesis, right? We'll give it a test, we'll put some people on it, but as soon as it delivers results, it's like a hockey stick effect, right? How do we do more faster? How do we send more data to it? How do we bring more merchandise? How do we add more use cases? So I think that trend will definitely continue. And I think, the third trend we see is really around kind of this architecture modernization. It's very general term, but I know you guys see this a lot. Retailers looking to make the move with Rise into the private cloud to really rethink technology operations. What do I run in house versus what do I, run in a kind of private cloud model? What do I outsource as a managed service to another provider versus keeping as, my secret sauce within the four walls of my office? And I think retailers are, right in the middle of that journey. And no two answers are the same. There's not one right answer. There's really kind of paths and choices. And I think it's all about trying to marry the the right modern architecture with the needs of your business, right? Business capability with the technology backbone that will deliver. It's funny, some of the fundamentals are the same even from years back, but the nuance changes quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we still see, I think the importance of business led, right? The idea that it's not a, it's never, I mean, obviously it's a technology play. There's all of those things are true, but it's also the idea that all of this has to still drive business benefit, right? The idea
Yeah.
that we have to be able to deliver to customers not just a fancy new box that they can log into and it looks better and all those things, but it's got to drive value for the business. And to that point, it's no different than it was 15, 20, may date myself a little bit more, 25 years ago, maybe. But the idea is still that the technology can't just be it's not just a pure technology play. We have to be able to drive business value. So when we're having conversations with customers and whether they're, in a conference room pilot or to the point that you said about, let's start with this baby steps on predictive. It's not just the fact that you have a cool data model and it came out with a fancy number, right? It's got to be that that number helps the business drive something, whether it's improve customer loyalty, improve market share, improve profitability on a line or something. So all of those things are still very true. I think the challenge is in the end the underlying of the requirements of the business haven't changed. That they still need to drive improvement on margins or whatever the topics are. But the technology, for me, the pace of technology growth and change over the last 5 years has been tremendous. And I know from, when we were having conversations with customers in the past about moving it from from ECC into S4, and there was well, I don't really know very much. Maybe it's just I'm just going to do a technical upgrade. We're starting now to see a lot more of requirements like, oh my goodness, there's a lot more functionality capabilities and a lot more business value that can be delivered through going through this exercise of not just doing a pure technical upgrade, of actually doing a more transformative move to S4. And we're also seeing, I think, the RISE program has really helped to drive people to understand what exactly needs to be done. SAP, I think, has done a fantastic job of explaining everything that means. So more and more customers, as we're talking to them, RISE is a big component of that transformation. So from my point of view, I'm happy that SAP got a story that, and story makes it sound like it's made up, which I don't like the idea, but the idea being that that you were able to communicate the value of moving, not just because of a time deadline or just because it's a new fancy platform. There's a lot of business benefit. And I think that's been, from my point of view, a huge improvement from an SAP point of view.
Yeah, and I think what we see too, you mentioned being business led. We're very focused on tying the technology feature to the business outcome. So, for example, in retail, retailers can't afford the latency of moving data from one system to the next. So having a ledger that's updating in real time is going to allow you to close the books faster and have a very clear line of sight to, the pulse of the business, all the way from the point of sale transaction into that GL posting. Having a single view of inventory is really table stakes these days, because if you aren't clear in pretty near real time where the goods are, not only in store, in DC, all throughout the supply chain, it makes all of those decisions about customer experience more challenging, right? If I have a choice as a consumer, if retailer A knows they've got it and knows they can get it to me in 2 hours, right, I'm sold. So a lot of these principles, you can't afford to move data. It's an architectural principle, but it really drives that business outcome, which is all related to speed, clear visibility into the data. And I can't tell you how many times I see the lines of business starting to blur. So you're having a conversation about maybe an SAP finance-led transformation, but you find yourself talking to the chief supply chain officer and the chief merchant because retailers are really starting to see the interconnectedness of those processes. It's not just about purchasing, it's about more effective purchasing so that we can do more effective collection of the rebates, so that our invoicing is more accurate, and our days outstanding is reduced and we can get more cash in the bank, right? Connecting the dots across all those different processes. And many of the retailers who are taking advantage of Rise and making the move into S4 are taking advantage of those interconnected business processes because that's really where a lot of the value can be generated.
Okay. Thank you very much for this time today. I think I myself am selfishly, but really the Rising really enjoys having the time to meet with you, discuss SAP and the retail trends we're seeing. As always, again, let me start that again. Hold on, cut. So thanks very much again for joining today. We really enjoy having the time to meet with you and discuss SAP and the retail trends you're seeing. As always, Rising really appreciates all the time that you give to us. I know myself, we have a relationship that goes back a long time, and I really appreciate your industry guidance, your expertise in the solution, and so on. I know we can always count on you from a customer point of view. You're always providing excellent feedback to customers. So thank you for everything that you do for us. And again, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. I appreciate it.
To find out more, head to rising.com.